Hi, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
So, today we are going to talk about taking things personally because that comes up a lot in relationships. And when we do that, it tends to be very painful for us. And oftentimes there's conflict in the relationship as a result. And it's good to say that Angus and I do that much less with each other these days. But we have to be honest and say that we have actually both been very humbled and brought to our knees in terms of taking things personally when it comes to parenting recently. And so, we always can see what our level of grounding and understanding is by the way we show up in life. So there's definitely opportunities for growth and learning for both of us there. And I think for myself, it's so the feelings can come in so quickly that I'm being driven by them in a way that it's almost like I'm trying to catch up with myself to sort of say like, whoa, stop. And then by the time I sort of get some rationality in my mind or some settledness, it's like, oh no, I've gone too far. I've said something or I've behaved in a way. And so we thought that it would just be a great opportunity to share a little bit more about what we're seeing in this area.
Sounds good to me. Did you want me to share?
I thought you were going to.
I don't know. Well, I just suddenly realized I came up with this ridiculous metaphor in my head. I was trying to think, well, what is it about taking something personally and how I show up in that way? And then how then I have this experience where there's a part of me knows that the best thing that I can do when I take things personally is to look for a way to settle down. And I know that even in that assumption, that's kind of like the wrong direction to go, because there's nothing I can really do to force myself to settle down. I don't really think. I'm having the emotional experience of being out of balance, of being out of whack, being upset. And so I can't really force myself to settle down. It's kind of like that generally makes me more unsettled. But I had an experience recently where I definitely got out of balance, and I won't name names or point fingers, but it was a family
Other
member.
than toward yourself, maybe.
I went towards myself, but it was a family member, and I think and I definitely I will own that I kind of got out of balance. It kind of like it caught me off guard, and it was a blind spot for me. And then I maybe have said some things that I definitely said some things that I regretted almost immediately. But I found myself kind of withdrawing from the situation, the impending argument, or in the midst of what was looking like an argument, and found myself sitting on the bed in the bedroom. And it's kind of like, and this is what you'll probably be shocked by this analogy, but it's kind of like, there have been times when I've been at dinner where I was sat down in company, maybe company that I'm not that familiar with, and I may have had a couple of drinks. I mean a couple of drinks, or maybe even have had one drink. I'm such a cheap date these days. And then I'll suddenly get to a point where I notice, oh my goodness, I've had too much to drink, and I'm like with new people, and I need to show up, and I need to give it a good account of myself. And then it's kind of a case where I feel, well, I better drink some water, or I just have to wait to settle down. And in a sense, that's where I found myself the other day. I was sitting on the bed, and it's like, well, I feel really charged up at the moment. And really, all that's going to happen here is I've got to settle down. But in a sense, all I've got to really do is just wait for that to happen. So I just actually observed the process of me settling down. And it was kind of like, you drink too much alcohol, then you kind of watch it sort of leave your system. You start to see indications of where you feel a little bit more sober. So in a sense, I'm making an analogy between sobriety and me settling down when when my temper's up, when I get out of balance.
I like it. You can see anger as a form of
It
intoxication.
is a form of
I like
intoxication because
that.
it's so compelling, and there's really not much you can do, or not much I can do about it
Mm-hmm.
in the moment, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
really kind of like feeling it, and it's really compelling. So really all I can do is just like kind of twiddle my thumbs and wait for it to sort of dissipate. And that's kind of, and obviously there's a biology to it as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
So that my system is flushed with whatever, what adrenaline
Neurochemicals, yeah.
neurochemicals are going down. So it's just a case of me just waiting for myself to come back into equilibrium. And then it was so amazing for me just to sort of observe this situation the other day, where at first I felt, I'm in my judgment, I'm really like in a place of righteousness and really angry. And then as I watched the process of me settling down unfold, I then, did an inventory of my feelings. And at that point I didn't feel in any way, shape or form the same way that I did 10 minutes before. Mm-hmm. That all left my system, all that judgment had gone. Mm-hmm. So it's just really interesting to see, the lens that I wear when I'm in judgment is so different to the lens that I wear when I'm in my state of balance.
Yeah. When you're not intoxicated with anger.
I'm not intoxicated.
I like that. Oh, hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. And, what I was seeing, because it was just a different incident. Thank goodness it wasn't both Angus and I at the same time, completely losing our mind, but it was a different incident where I got really angry as well. And when I was reflecting on it, what I saw is that the only way I'm ever going to get that upset is if I'm taking something personally, if I'm making it mean something in my own mind. It's got nothing to do with what's going on outside of me or what the other person's doing, how they're behaving, how they're acting. It's everything to do with how I'm identifying with my own thoughts in that moment. And like you, I got intoxicated with anger. And then what tends to happen for me is afterwards, rather than just like you were saying, kind of, you sounded much more neutral in your observation of kind of letting that wash through you. Afterwards, I would go from intoxication of anger into intoxication of shame, and then just beat myself up and just, be really hard on myself. And it's not that I don't want to feel shame or feel guilty, because I think there's a health in the intelligence to have those feelings when I've acted out of line. I want to get that feedback, but I want to just see it as feedback. I don't want to see it as meaning something about who I am as a human being, my worth as a human being, and to really be able to kind of learn from it ultimately. And I think your level of neutrality and witnessing that, there was so much learning available. And that was the same thing that I experienced when I was sort of less reactive with myself afterwards. I got to see so much more how it was all about my hurt feelings and me, my ego feeling bruised. And what was really interesting is I think it was when you were having your meltdown, I was actually able to stay neutral in that experience and to not get gripped and to not take things personally. And I didn't do anything to get there. It was the previous experience and going through it. I didn't sort of afterwards sit and think about, how do I not do this again? How am I going to be better? There was a natural learning process of just living the experience that I was really appreciating the next time round, because I definitely went into it more with my eyes wide open, recognizing that it wasn't personal, and seeing more clearly when I'm not taking something personally, how much suffering is going on in the person, that's upset and reactive, both you and our daughter. So I can't say that I was able to effectively intervene and stop what went down between the two of you, but I certainly didn't add to the equation in that instance.
No, yeah, it was actually, I think you make a very good, an important point. And for me now, when I have those moments, I think the way that I reframe it, or the way that I view it now is that, yeah, there's a learning opportunity here. I got caught up. And what have I learned from this experience that maybe, I'll do things a little differently next time. And the little differently that I do next time is I'll be much better equipped to see the indicator when I start to fall off the wagon, as it were.
When you start to get intoxicated.
I start to get intoxicated.
When you take that first sip of anger.
When I take that first sip. So that for me is that has value, to look at it through that lens, for sure.
Yeah. And I just want to encourage all of you to be kind with yourselves, whether you have teenagers in your life that might behave in ways that you innocently take personally, or other people, to just really allow yourself the room for your humanity, the room to be on a learning and growth process to sort of have self-compassion along the way. I think that's made such a huge difference for myself when I haven't acted in ways that I would really want to, when I've really not been my best self, to really see that, even though that's not my best, in terms of possibility, it's my best in that moment. And that has to be good enough for me. And, it's very humbling, but it's also very liberating to know that it's temporary and transitory, and I am going to come back to that natural state of love that is who we all are. And people are resilient. We can always go back and apologize. We can always go back and revisit situations and find that place of love in our hearts. And I'm grateful to say that we had the capacity to do that.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for showing up. Have a wonderful weekend and take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.